Welcome to TYT Interviews. I'm Jason Rubin, host of TYT Sports, and I'm joined today by NOlympics, or is it NOlympics? Does it flow?
It's NOlympics.
NOlympics.
It's one word.
Yeah. One word, as you can see by their shirts. I was left out of that equation without just my black t-shirt. Regardless, Ann, Johnny, and Steve are here. They are organizers within NOlympicsLA 2024, and we're gonna jump into a bunch of really interesting developments when it comes to the International Olympic Committee in terms of how corrupt that they really are. And this shouldn't be surprising if you've seen or followed the news regarding the IOC or in any major sports developments. The World Cup has these problems, UEFA has these problems, FIFA has these problems. But most notably, given the news today that they are meeting in Switzerland, the International Olympic Committee, and what Steve and I were discussing actually off camera, they're going to be announcing at some point today that there's going to be a dual announcement in September for whether or not that LA gets the 2024 Olympics or Paris, and then if there is really a consolation prize, their very nice way of kind of gift wrapping it towards another country in 2028, which has never happened before, and there's obviously some reasons as to why. So first things first, guys, what is NOlympicsLA 2024, and how have you started, where did you start NOlympics 2024? Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, this was born out of the Housing and Homelessness Committee of the Democratic Socialists of America Los Angeles chapter, of which we are all members. And Johnny was actually the one who kind of presented this to our group a few months ago at one of our committee meetings. It was something that was kind of flying under the radar. This is something that has happened in a lot of other cities where cities have rejected the bid, most notably recently in Boston. Right. And he floated the idea to the committee, and we kind of latched onto it, and the campaign's been going full steam for about the last month now.
Yeah. Great, and so if you've seen, so you can follow them, by the way, quick plug for them on NOlympics on Twitter and on Facebook. It's great watching the Twitter feed, just because if you're looking for, look, we all know in general, politicians do tend to lie. I don't think that's a bold statement, but in general, what's funny is that a lot of this is falling on Mayor Eric Garcetti's lap, and he is beating around the bush in terms of what really would happen to Los Angeles. So Steve, you mentioned Boston, right? And which was the original, if those who forgot, in terms of getting an Olympics bid, was going to be the place in the US that was going to host the Olympics for 2024. And then after severe backlash from residents and citizens in Boston, actually they took a poll and only 43% supported the Olympics coming to Boston. They realized that, well, we're going to have to pay for it. So one of the things that NOlympicsLA has been doing for the past month is pointing out the fact that when the Olympics go over budget, and wait until you see some of these charts, because the Olympics have historically always gone over budget. Actually, they've never made budget, and the idea of them going under budget is a pipe dream. But when they go over budget, the taxpayers are on the hook, which means us in Los Angeles would have to pay, and that's part of the reason, if not most of the reason, that those in Boston were like, I don't want to pay for these Olympics. And as a sports fan, I don't think it's a I hate the Olympics thing. It's just, look, we don't want to be on the hook for when you guys mess up. So in terms of LA 2024, they said that there is this initiative in 2020 that's going to stop over budgeting and that they're not going to be able to do it. Why is that not going to happen?
Well, like you said, there's I think it's 165% of the time there's cost overruns in different Olympics. So that's a pretty good batting average to mix a metaphor there. But I think it's because there's so many, we saw the issue in LA with the Rams Stadium going over budget because of rain. You know what I mean? It's like we have so many different ecological things or just other kind of acts of God or other things that can make the best laid plan go awry and sort of,
And then even in terms of their specific plan to keep costs managed or manageable, we think some of the trade-offs that Garcetti is making in particular or is willing to make, put certain communities at risk. And the main one that we take issue with is the designation of the games as a national special security event, which Garcetti and the bid committee have kind of been advertising as a big cost-saving measure because that will allow the security costs to be covered by the federal government. What they're not talking about openly is the fact that it will also put the LAPD under the jurisdiction and control of the federal government, and specifically the Department of Homeland Security.
Additionally to that, what we saw, so obviously we have some conflicts of interest there, but at the same time, what's interesting about that point in the LAPD being under the jurisdiction of the federal government was in London 2012 Olympics, they said that the London police force, which is not what they are called. I wish I actually had the exact name for them, so I apologize to those.
We'll just call them bobbies.
Bobbies, they're bobbies, right?
Okay, bobbies, yeah, we'll call them bobbies. So
Coppers.
And constables and stuff, right?
It's a very wonderful term. So the bobbies in London were supposed to see a lot of the funding that was going into the budget. What ended up happening is the Olympics hired their own private security firm, which is a kind of a double slap at London's force, because they said, one, well, we don't really think that you guys can handle this in your own city. We want to hire our own. And why would they want to hire their own private security firm? Because it's a circle. The money goes to the private security firm. The security firm is pretty much sending the money back to the pockets of Thomas Bach and the IOC in terms of briberies and how much we've seen this corruption run very deep. So the money that was supposed to be allocated, that they said was going to get allocated, upwards of $250 million to the bobbies, really turned out to be about 15 million, while the private security firm took about 235 million of that. And when it comes to a global event in itself, I would think one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, with bringing in thousands and thousands of people in terms of tourism, 20,000 media members, athletes, would be security, especially in a time where we do have attacks going on, unfortunately, in places like Europe, the United States, wherever it might be. So back to the point about the Olympic Games going over budget, though, because I wanted to mention some of these numbers. If you want the actual hard numbers, for example, in Brazil, and these numbers aren't finalized for Rio 2016.
It's always changing.
It's always changing, and interestingly enough, they're underestimating how much it goes on over budget, which is like, okay. But we're throwing around, what I've always found funny about these large numbers is we throw around 4.6 billion, like it's not that much money.
Like it's a rounding error?
Yeah, it's like 4.6, it could have been 4.7 billion, who knows?
What we could do with that 4.6 billion is
insane.
Is phenomenal. Yeah,
right. We could do, well, in terms of how much we need to fix in Los Angeles, is what you're alluding to. And we can get into some of the homelessness, which I know is a big project you guys have been working on as well. 4.6 billion over budget, roughly, in Rio 2016, which came out to 51% over budget. Nothing worse than Sochi in 2014, where they went over budget nearly $22 billion, which comes out to 289%. So when we look through these, that's just the most recent. In 2012 in London, 76% over budget. Hey, look, Vancouver, not bad, 13%. Look at that, only 13% of what the cost was. Oh, only $2.5 billion. Right, but we're gonna be right back in just a second with a few more, not just a few more, a lot more in terms of the International Olympic Committee, the budgeting, and of course, how they're gonna hopefully not have the Olympics in 2024 in Los Angeles.